Mr. County Executive, thank you for spending some time with us this afternoon. I really appreciate the work that you've done over many years, and as I was reflecting upon the moment of transition that we're in, it occurred to me that I'm not alone in thinking that a lot of the work that I've done as a council member was done in partnership with you in your work as county executive, and there are others here whose work with you precedes their time in the county council, their roles in the community, going back many years. And you were a council member for many years, many terms, and probably in this very room presided over the council. And so it would be fitting for us as a council to acknowledge your work as a council member, and as individuals, perhaps to share some reflections about work that we've done together. I know that as a council member, I have been a better council member thanks to work that you have embraced, that I've worked on, that your example, your guidance, your leadership has strengthened so much in this county. And so we have prepared a proclamation for you, and I know that you probably haven't had anyone give you a proclamation at this moment in time, and so you've probably got a spot reserved. And we have a frame of legislation that you passed, the Fair Housing Act that you passed a number of years ago, which continues to carry forward as one of the most important policy initiatives the County Council ever adopted. And I just wanted to share a moment, and I'll ask if there are a few of my colleagues, we don't necessarily have time for each, but there's a few who would care to join me in sharing a reflection. In my work at the council, I have taken on the role of being the digital government lead. And what that meant, I wasn't quite sure, but Roger agreed to give me that title, and I set about trying to do something with it. And one of the first acts that I pursued was the Open Data Act. And in the process of formulating the Open Data Act, I had to decide, did I want to try to work with the executive branch, work with you, or to try to work around or somehow parallel to you. And I did a little research on your record with technology, and I learned that you'd have been an early adopter. You were the first council member I heard to bring a mimeograph machine into your office, and you insisted that the council should have a telegraph office for the press. No, but in all seriousness, you embraced the Open Data Act, and your team that you brought together, that you built, has established data as one of the signature technology initiatives of Montgomery County government. And the work that we do is recognized by local governments all across the country as at the cutting edge. And I hear from residents all the time that they're getting benefits, accessing the sets, analyzing information, and strengthening their voices in the process, thanks to the Open Data Initiative that you embraced and have succeeded with far beyond what I even understood was possible. And I really wanted to commend you for that, because it says a lot about your style, that whether or not that was something that you had on your agenda as what you wanted to do with data, I don't know. You did create the 311 system. You're at the cutting edge of management and strategy, management strategy, but at the same time, a council member brought an initiative forward, and you made it happen and brought it to the next level. And I really thank you for that. I think for the county executive to be a skillful collaborator is one of the most important qualities as a council member, because you get to work with the county executive to achieve the goals that you are elected to achieve. And so I just wanted to express my appreciation to you for that spirit. And similarly, the bike infrastructure. I don't know that anyone's ever seen you whipping by on 355 and with a helmet on, on a bike, but that hasn't slowed you down from aggressively pursuing the cutting-edge bike infrastructure that is now cropping up all around this county, and being part of the change in this county to becoming one of the recognized suburban communities embracing the future of alternative modes of transportation. So I just wanted to, again, thank you for being the kind of executive that you are, to work closely with many council members on different initiatives, to work in partnership in a way that I think has always been in the spirit of the charter. And that has been so has brought so much to our community. And it's a bittersweet moment, obviously, to to say farewell, as we will soon say. We're not saying that today. We're commemorating your tremendous work, but thank you for everything that you've done. I really appreciate it. And if any of my colleagues would like to make an observation, and then I will go up to the mic and present the. Okay. Well, I didn't want to put everyone on the spot. This isn't a moment where you must praise our chairman. But if you would like to, I guess that's exactly the way it goes, isn't it? Yeah. Mr. Leventhal. I'll start. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Nancy Navarro, Council Vice President.
Nancy Fluff Navarro.
Did I say that?
Yeah, that's okay.
It's a nice name.
Yeah, it's a good combination.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Leggett, let me start by saying that, I'm always reminded that leaders really are tested when times are tough. It's very easy to proclaim to be a great leader when things are great. And so for me, having joined the council at a time when I was so excited about expanding programs and adding to things and being greeted with the Great Recession was baptism by fire. And I really do want to express my admiration and appreciation for how you very quickly responded to this big challenge and worked so collaboratively with us to make sure that we not only looked at low-hanging fruit and tried to put Band-Aid fixes, but really looked at structural changes, which really have led us to the point that we are today. And it has not been easy. So I would say that that's my first recollection of what it meant to be, a rookie council member under working in partnership with you. So I really do appreciate and admire that. The way I think also that you lead our AAA bond rating conversations every time we go to New York, I've also appreciated, because you're very good at making sure that you point to the great things we're doing and where the challenges are. And that, I think, it's something that everybody needs to emulate, because it's not always rosy, but it's great to have a plan. And so a lot of people perhaps don't get to see that, but it's something that I have appreciated. I do want to let you know that I did not berate you when it came to Wheaton. I clearly just wanted to express my passion around the fact that we needed to get something going, but really appreciate also that support, the support that you have given to doing something there, and also your extraordinary staff that has led the way in that. And I will close by saying, and of course there's so many other things, the Children Opportunity Fund, so many things, but the one thing that I found very interesting is that you invited me to speak once with Hispanic Heritage Month to county employees, and I spoke about one of our dishes in Venezuela, hallacas, which is something that we eat in December, and I explained the history and how it came to be with, something to the effect of, when slavery was, was there in Venezuela, people just kind of took whatever was left over and made this tamale, and it's kind of like our history. And you came up and you said that, wow, that was really incredible and very complicated, but for you, what reminds you of comfort food was Popeyes. And I thought that was really funny, and I thought it was just a joke, except that then I realized that Claudia Canales, your administrator, I believe they had a little farewell for you, and they gave you a whole bunch of Popeye memorabilia. So actually it was real and true, and so I will never forget that there is that connection between, the southern Louisiana food and Venezuela traditional food. And I do hope that you do stay involved in some level, because I think that we will continue to need, your expertise and your advice here and there. And lastly, just want to thank you for having assembled such an amazing administration, because you have some incredible people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Leventhal.
Well, I just came from packing up plaques and mementos from my office, and this is a time for a lot of memories. And my memories of you, I go back 32 years. In your first campaign, I was just a couple years out of college. I had a full head of hair. You had a full head of hair. And I didn't know you, but I was working on a campaign for state senate in Silver Spring, and some of the volunteers who were very excited about the candidate I was working for were not supporters of yours. And it's hard now, 32 years later, to remember how groundbreaking it was in a county which was much, much less diverse, much, much less diverse. And we are confronted every day now with the fact that racism persists in a big way. But it's easy to forget in the bubble that we live in what an extraordinary challenge you took on to run countywide in a climate that was maybe not so different than the climate that we see in other parts of the county, but was very different than the Montgomery County we appreciate today. And so some very terrible things were said about you as a candidate, not you as a person, but the racism that you must have had to encounter in your courage and bravery in taking that on is really very, very striking to me. And then over the years, as I got more involved in the Democratic Party, you set the standard. I used to call you the hardest working man in show business because you were always present in the community. I would see you as a party activist before I ran for office, just at community meetings, civic gatherings, Democratic Party gatherings, and you were among the most admired and beloved of the figures as a council member. And then when you made the announcement that you would not run for a fifth term in 2002, I had the opportunity to run because you vacated that seat. And that obviously made a major impact on my life and my career. And you offered me a lot of advice and help as a candidate and throughout my 16 years as a council member, serving twice as council president. Many times I would, get a phone call and it was Professor Leggett on the other end offering me a lesson plan. Whether or not I had enrolled in the course, I was always grateful. I was always appreciative of the advice. And then when you, of course, decided to retire and the office of county executive became vacant, and I ran for that too. And I've said since the election, I think the only thing worse than losing for county executive might have been winning. And I wish every success and good wish to my friend Mark Elrich. But as I mounted that campaign, it made me appreciate you and your many gifts even more. The difficulty of balancing the demands of constituents, demands that are often 180 degrees different from each other. And yet you, I think, more than anyone else in county politics, have been able to leave everyone feeling like they'd been heard, and everyone feeling good about the way you handled them and their concern, because it just absolutely is not possible to satisfy 100% of the constituents, but you always maintained great grace and an even tone, and even when the demands were unrealistic, which sometimes they are, you always managed to handle them so deftly and in such a gentlemanly manner. So I know that all of us have learned a great deal from your example, and I join my colleagues in expressing our great admiration and affection for you.
George, that's a great segue. That's why I ran too in 2002. Mr. Leggett was retiring, and we were both successful. Well, Ike, you've heard this before, but I was going to, because I knew everyone was going to say more or less the same wonderful thing. And you've heard this, and I think Mr. Katz has heard this. But I did not bring my rap band with me today. But I am going to do my salute that I did to you a few months ago. Everybody, ready? Executive Ike Leggett, he's the man who really gets it. Number 7 out of 12, not a minute to himself. Left Louisiana for Montgomery, so shining but less summery, to make this new community an amazing place for unity. With an ear for all the people and the faiths and the religions that will fit beneath the steeple or mosque or yurt or shul, I'll teach, like Ike, to live the golden rule. Executive Ike Leggett, he's the man who really gets it. And let's see if we don't lose our power here. Grow the table, don't grow fences. Young and old, let's use our senses. In Montgomery, achieve your fate, participate, walk straight, don't wait. Find brotherhood, not hate. Together, you can be great. He told our long-term residents, we're grateful for your evidence, your precedence, your excellence, your eloquence and elegance. For Montgomery's glory is the real American story. Executive Ike Leggett, he is the man who really gets it. From service in Vietnam into the White House with aplomb, to teach the law at Howard, Ike flourished and he flowered, never shied from any challenge. He can teach, inspire, manage, make decisions truly balanced. He listens, then he leads to keep this golden county moving at the proper speeds. Executive Ike Leggett, he's a man who really gets it. Going forward with due care, always fiscally aware. Through cutbacks and through furloughs and even restorations, no ponderous orations, he lays foundations, winning Wall Street salutations and citizen ovations. On county council broke precedent, consecutive terms as president, whether compromise or will unbent, from Ike, we learn the rule, now taught in every school, when you have the votes, stop talking. Without them, start your balking, sleepwalking, stalking, slow walking, crawl into any nearby hole, just so long as you make sure that they never call the roll. Executive Ike Leggett, he's a man who really gets it. Never haunted, never daunted, Ike's a man who finds solutions, top staff, builds institutions, writes new circumlocutions. Executive Ike Leggett, he's a man who really gets it. A man who's on a mission to diversify commissions that reflect us all, with no omission. Brown and yellow, black and white, old and mellow, young and bright, all come to Montgomery. With Ike, there's no blustering, no drudgery, no thuggery, only constant new discovery of strength to make things right. He's led the way to make the East, not least, but increased, its powers released, and Viva White Oak reborn, now awoke with dreams in place to set the pace as the space for research, jobs, and growth. To develop the economy would take some more autonomy, so privatize, prioritize, then customize, and energize, and maximize, and synthesize. So much for education, for housing more affordable. His accomplishments abound, resound, compound, and confound, which leads to such renown. But at the end of the day, what can we say? That he brings the ability, the stability, the humility. He speaks with civility, then acts with agility, flexibility, dedication, and utility. That he finds new possibilities with surprising facility, only rare irascibility, which makes the final probability with total dependability, Ike's versatility and sustainability through 7 county-wide elections. Executive Ike Leggett, he's a man who really gets it. Mr. Zients had helped a little bit with that, too.
Well, it's tough to follow the play Hamilton, I can tell you, but yeah, like if I'd have known that, I could have written an appointment. Hi, diddle, diddle, something. But first off, I sincerely want to thank you for your leadership and for being a mentor to me personally and for being a friend. You've really made a tough job appear to be easy, and that in itself is not easy. I think about the people that served before you, all of whom served with distinction as a county executive. And I don't believe that anyone could ever attend as many events as you and Catherine have. It's just unbelievable. And you've truly made an impact on so many from every walk of life, every age, and from every background. People have said, we could each do just a few things that we remember quickly, but the mental health courts, what a difference it's made in people's lives, both from a circuit and a district court level. It truly has made a remarkable difference. I've gone to their graduations, and people are starting to see that there's a path for them as well. And in some of our discussions, you've clearly pointed out various concerns and, as George said, given guidance on how you would suggest they be solved. And I sure hope you'll continue to do that, not just for me, but for all of us. And I've had some amusing discussions with you as well. I remember, I guess it was last year or the year before, I was actually watching the Silver Spring Parade on television. And the announcer mentioned that you have a beautiful singing voice. And I was at an event and sat at the same table as some of your family members, maybe a couple days later. And of course, being Mr. Congeniality, I figured I'd bring up this great knowledge that I had about you. And I said, I never realized that Ike has such a great singing voice. And both your family members says his voice is terrible. He does not have a great singing voice. And so, of course, I couldn't wait to walk over to the table where you were to give you this new information. And you did agree with me very quickly that your next career is not going to be on that circuit. But you and Catherine are truly remarkable people. You've served us all in a remarkable way. And I thank you for your service, and I know all of us do, have gained so much from your knowledge and from your help. And quite candidly, I hope you do not enjoy retirement. I hope that you keep helping us, because I know I'm going to keep calling on you. Thank you very much for all that you do.
Mr. County Executive, there's a Jewish proverb that says, "I ask not for a lighter burden, but for broader shoulders." From your earliest days to your service to our community, you have carried so much. And you have done so with such grace, with such humility, and has been said by others with such dignity. And that, to me, is what's most important. There are many legislative accomplishments that all of us can point to in working with you and the things that you have done. But to me, what has always set you apart is how you've done them. And so our community has gone through the most incredible demographic changes and transitions of almost any community anywhere. And the way you have stood up for our county's values of inclusion and mutual respect and human dignity has been really among the hallmarks of your tenure. And without that, I mean, you've seen what happens in other places with other officials, with other so-called leaders. But your leadership in that regard has been just so exemplary, and we are in your debt for that among so many things. So when I think of you, I think of that saying that may your life be a blessing. Ike Leggett, you have been a blessing to our community, and we thank you for that.
So, Mr. County Executive, let me just start by saying, not about what you've done for me, but what you've done for people like me. Growing up here in this county, it's incredibly important to be able to see in the various aspects of careers a person who holds themselves to the highest levels so that you can exemplify them. And so it's one of those things where, as a young man who grew up in Montgomery County and seeing politics, you were always the shining example, because there was only one. There was only one African American who we had in a high leadership position here in Montgomery County, and quite frankly, here in the state of Maryland. There are a lot of scandals and all kinds of things that confounded a lot of elected officials throughout the state of Maryland. And you, sir, are one who you've heard from my colleagues have always held yourself to the highest of those standards, and that means a lot. It means a lot for a young man who thinks about service to their community, who thinks about the things that they want to do to continue to serve and make the lives for other people better. And again, I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about young people who I talk to that are in school, and talk about you, and talk about the impact that you have on them. These aren't people who are playing inside baseball, who know about politics, who know about what it is and the sacrifices you make. What they know is that they see a black man who's doing great things for people in their community. And that means so much today in today's age, where we continue to see stories that are exactly the opposite. You are the shining example of what we all aspire to have in our community. People of all races and creeds and religions who are dedicated to serving their fellow man. And there are no limitations based on who you are or what you look like to make sure that those things happen. You defy the very stereotypes that you've heard some of my other colleagues say that unfortunately continue to exist. That is why your service is so important. not just about the great things you've done here in Montgomery, but about the great things that you do in terms of opening up the possibility for so many behind you. I stand as one of those, as one of many, who now see the role that you have played and the things that you have done for our community and understand that that's something that we all can aspire to do and be. So I thank you for that, sir.
I haven't heard anything I disagree with yet. Mr. Leggett, thanks for making the time to come over. I'm worried that everything's been said, but not everybody's had a chance to say it yet. But I do want to say also, this has been great to listen to, but also how much I enjoyed the well-deserved tributes to you at the Women's Democratic Club and at Strathmore. And I think a lot of people in the audience learned, who may have only known you for the last few years, learned an awful lot about your contributions to the county over so many decades at those events. All of us appreciate the steady leadership that you showed during the Great Recession. It's not easy to maintain our vital services and a AAA bond rating at the same time. That's no easy feat, and you managed to do it. And it affects all of us even today because it's made subsequent budgets and subsequent CIPs so much easier. The hard choices that you had to make then. None of us run for office hoping to lead in those difficult times when you have to make very difficult choices, but you managed to carry us through that period with a lot of grace and wisdom. And in particular, I'm grateful for your emphasis on infrastructure. When you knew there were great constraints on our operating budget and you knew there were still a lot of unmet needs in the county and that you could spur economic development, create jobs, and address unmet needs by investing in our capital budget, the folks, especially in my district, but all across the county, are really grateful for projects that you led on, like the Silver Spring Library and our new fire station, our 3rd District Police Station, the Good Hope Rec Center and the East County Rec Center, and so much affordable housing all over the county, because each one of those projects isn't just a good idea in itself. I think it sends a message to people that I hear all the time that the county sees them and thinks of them, thinks they matter, and that their concerns matter. And that is exactly the sort of message we should be sending from Rockville. I'm also grateful as a longtime activist and a progressive on the council that you have always embraced an expansive role of county government, and that you had an ambition for Montgomery County government that I think other local leaders don't always see, that you saw a role for the county government in leading on public health initiatives, on programs to support people experiencing homelessness, integrating so many immigrants into our Montgomery County family, and so much work to close the income and the achievement gaps and the opportunity gaps between the East County and the West County, as well as all your long recognized support for arts and libraries and recreation programs. I really appreciate that that's not done just through the county government, but through your support for nonprofits. Years ago, you were very supportive of me and Progressive Maryland when we were just getting started. You've been very supportive of so many nonprofits over the years, not just through the budget, but by assigning great staff to work with them. And then, even you and Catherine going above and beyond so many times, opening up your house to the District 14 Democratic Club or the African American Democratic Club or the state delegation for social events or other events, just to make people work together better and to send a message that, while it wasn't in your job description, send a message about what was important to you personally and to Catherine personally, and I know people really appreciate that. I've greatly enjoyed working with you. I really appreciate all your advice and support over the years, and I know all of us up here will miss you greatly. Thank you.
So I want to thank you also. I mean, in the years I've known you, you've always been gracious, and at times when we've disagreed, you've never been disagreeable. And we've always been able to have good, intelligent discussions about things. And at the end, whether we agreed or not, we left friends and we continued to work with each other. And that meant a lot, because not everybody plays that way. And I really appreciated that. I appreciated your expertise with snow, and I only say that because they're projecting another possible 28 inches of extra snow. I was hoping it would all fall by December 3rd, because I don't want to learn on the job in my first term, so I thought maybe I'd get a little refresher if it came early. We may get some tomorrow morning. Yes, 1 inch. But I would just be light about that. Anyway, I think, the things that stick out for me were your early recognition of the African-American recreation centers that have been allowed to fall into absolute disrepair, and your very firm statement that we were going to fix these and we were going to take care of these. And I know how much it meant to the African-American community, who had suffered relatively silently while they watched other things go on around the county, and their systems continued to deteriorate. And I really, really appreciated your leadership on that. Your leadership during the recession, I think, was just critically important for the long-term health of the county. And I think you saw something that not everybody saw, which is that this was going to be deep and it was going to be, persistent. And this wasn't going to be over in 2 years, so we just couldn't go about our business and think 2 years later we'd all be fine. You set us on a path of really difficult decisions that when things didn't get better in 2 years, we were able to manage them, and manage them better than most other jurisdictions, I think, were able to do it. And I don't think many of the other people who would have sat in your seat would have taken that view. So I'm really glad that you were there, and I think you set us up for a better future. I appreciated your signature on 2 minimum wage bills, and on the tenants' rights legislation, and on 10 Mile Creek, and on the bus rapid transit, because all those things can be transformative for the county. And you work to get to places on all of them that we could live with, and I think are going to move this county forward. And I think as we move and some of these things, like the minimum wage gets fully implemented and bus rapid transit becomes more of a reality, they're going to be transformative for people in this county, and I appreciate your leadership and vision on all that stuff. And lastly, I thank you for your sartorial advice. I don't know if you remember, but it was early in the campaign, and I was talking to you, and you leaned over to me and you said, "You don't always have to wear a tie, but you have to wear a jacket." And so I've done my best wherever I show up, at least to have a jacket on. And I'm pleasantly surprised sometimes when I'm overdressed more than you, which happens rarely, but at least I feel I'm getting too serious about this. I do appreciate what you did, and your help and, support and guidance over all these years. And I hope you're around to come and visit and say, "Hey, have you thought about this?" Because we're going to face challenges, and experience and knowledge have a place and a role, and you have a lot of that. And I'll be more than happy to listen to you in the future. Thank you.
Let me say it is somewhat ironic that you're giving me all of these great praises at a time when I just lost Amazon. It's a bittersweet pill today because I had great hope and expectation that we would, in fact, get it up right up until the very end. A lot of the praises, I think, are reflective of the team that I have around me and the person who's helped implement, helped guide me and support me. Tim Feinstein. Tim is here somewhere. Where's Tim? Tim. Much of what all of you described was not possible without your support, the partnership. Not only your direct involvement and participation, but also from your staff, from Steve, Glenn, Marlene, and so many other people around who helped to make all of those things you described possible. I'll just say a couple of things. I want to also thank you for your trust. And let me explain what I mean by that. There are a couple of times when I made some very, very serious decisions. And I went out on a limb with the expectation and belief that you would support me. The decision as it relates to the Purple Line, a call late at night from the Secretary of Transportation, laying out a plan and deal which I had to respond within a very short period of time, calculating what was at stake for the county, the cost to the county, what it required us to do in order to ensure that Prince George's County was on board, I made a decision to say yes. And the only person I think that I called after the decision was Roger to say, Roger, I've gone out on a limb, and this is what I've decided to do. I need you and your colleagues to back me in this decision. Because if we don't do it now, I'm not sure that we can pull this back. And so trust me that this is the right thing to do. And you said yes, and you said, I believe we get the council aboard. Despite losing Amazon, when we put together a proposal that all of you did not know all the details and precise points of that discussion, you trusted me and my team to do the right thing. I appreciate that. There have been so many occasions, going back many years ago, when I made a very hard decision related to the WSSC project and getting the land to, in fact, provide us with the impetus to go forward from Viva White Oak. And come back later on after that with Maryland and say, Maryland, this is the deal that I've made. I cannot go back on it. You have to support this and accept it. That's the trust that you placed in me. And there have been so many occasions when I made decisions, believing that I was making a decision on the behalf of this county, for which you have trusted me to ensure. I want to leave you with one last comment, is that there are an awful lot of big things that you've just described, an awful lot of things that we've done as it relates to a $5.7 billion budget. We make big decisions in this county. Montgomery County, in terms of its budget, the number of people, is probably larger than 6 or 7 states. And so they're not small matters that we make decisions about, but it is the small matters that I think reflects your courage, your leadership, and your ability. I recall after my first 4 years on the county council many years ago, I was prepared to just leave. So many hearings, trying to go to all the things that you've just described, still the residual effects of racism and so forth, still affecting the county, leadership and everything else. And I'm saying I've got a wonderful job at Howard University. I'm producing students all over the place. Why do I have to do this? And I was leaning very heavily to not coming back to run again. But a lady approached me and she described the problem that she had. And she said to me that her husband had recently died and that she had inquired about his benefits to the county. They had recently adopted a kid from Thailand or China or somewhere. And she had a part-time job only making about $10,000 a year. And when she inquired about the benefits from the county, she realized that all the benefits were in the name of a first wife, a wife that she didn't know anything about, and it was surprising to her. And so she came to me with a problem. She contacted the first wife. And the first wife said, well, I haven't seen him in 20-some years. He maybe just forgot to change your name on the papers and remove my name. And the county said, well, nothing we can do about this. And so she explained this to me right at this crucial time, and I was thinking about not running for re-election. And I said, well, you know, we need to correct this. And I provided a legislation which the county executive, county council, my colleagues on the council said, oh, you can't go back and correct this. It goes back 20-some years. The county executive this time was against it. The head of personnel at that time was against it. Everybody was against it. But I said, I'm going to introduce this. I have to correct this wrong. And the day we were to vote, in this very same room, ironically, sitting right here, the lady shows up with herself, her family, and the little kid. And I am not certain what my colleagues on the council will do. And I'm saying to myself, this could be a major, major embarrassment. This has a big impact on her and her family. This is one person, but it has a huge impact. And as we started to debate this, and ultimately decided to vote, one by one, all 9 members of the council voted yes. And the lady sitting about right here looked at me with the baby in her arms, and she started crying. And I said to myself right then, this is why I am here. This small matter impacting this one single person for which I had the ability to do something about, and I did. I immediately left this chamber, went to the Board of Elections, and signed up to run again. And I've been running ever since. I say that because just recently, this council on a disability retirement affecting one person, a bus driver here in Montgomery County, one person who was disabled and his benefits ended. It took us 5 months to correct, but ultimately provided legislation that provided relief to this one person that affected probably 2 or 3 others. And we spent a great deal of time making sure we got it right. I say that because, in essence, this is the job. When you make decisions about the school system, there are boards of education, there are teachers' unions, there are support unions, there's a whole system that protects that. But this was one person. And if we ever fail to recognize that in the job and responsibilities, then we miss the essence of what legislation and leadership are about. If you get the small things right, you would ultimately get the big things right as well. And so that's the word that I'll leave with you. You've done that admirably, and I'm sure that you will continue to do it in the future. Thank you.
All right. First item we have for your commemorative wall is a framed copy of legislation that you authored. I know it'll be very familiar to you, but seems appropriate coming from the county council. So thank you. This is your bill 1887. 87 is the year, I believe, then it was passed, is that right? And it was a fair housing law, landmark law. And we have a proclamation, which we've helpfully framed for you as well, that I'll read, and then we'll take a photograph together. Whereas in November 2006, Isaiah Leggett was elected to his first 4-year term as Montgomery County Executive and is the first African-American leader to be elected to this public office, and the county residents benefited from his leadership for the last 12 years. And whereas, as County Executive, Leggett has built a record of public service marked by conviction to principle, leadership, and a willingness to make hard choices, and he has successfully focused on making sure that residents from every part of our ever more diverse Montgomery County have a seat at the table and a voice in the decisions that affect their lives. And whereas, as skillful collaborator, Leggett embraced his colleagues on the county council and partnered with them on countless initiatives in every area of policymaking, including transportation, housing, economic development, energy and the environment, youth development, public safety, and more. And whereas, during his tenure as county executive, the county has won $476 million in state money for county school construction, and the county has increased capital funding for the Montgomery County Public Schools by nearly 50%, which has added 21,043 seats. That is 6 new schools, 44 school additions, and 27 renovations or expansions, and 12 gym renovations. And whereas, working in partnership with the County Council, Leggett has built a foundation for a brighter future by reinventing economic development and workforce development, supporting MCPS and Montgomery College with record investments, backing the Purple Line, WMATA, enhanced bus service and bike infrastructure, revitalizing areas of the county such as White Flint and Wheaton, expanding housing opportunities and affordable housing programs, and relocating county services to make land available to advance a smart growth vision. And whereas County Executive Leggett is also known as an adept campaigner, winning election to the County Council, serving 4 terms as an at-large council member before winning the County Executive's office in 2010 and 2014. And whereas he served as a captain in the United States Army, and his tour of duty in the Vietnam War earned him the Bronze Star Medal, the Vietnam Service Medal, and the Vietnam Campaign Medal. And whereas County Executive Leggett holds a Bachelor of Arts from Southern University, a Master of Arts and a Juris Doctorate from Howard University, and a Master of Laws from George Washington University. Now therefore be it resolved that the County Council of Montgomery County hereby honors County Executive Isaiah Leggett today in November 2018. Thank you.